Ready for a deep dive into the future of voting? We're talking blockchain. Yeah, the tech behind cryptocurrency. But this time, it's about making elections more secure, more transparent. The Department of Technology thinks it could be the answer.
It's a fascinating idea, right? I mean, we've all heard about the problems with the current system.
Yeah,
This could be a big step towards something way more trustworthy.
absolutely. And I know our listeners are pretty savvy about blockchain, but just imagine this. Every single vote, recorded digitally, tamper-proof, and totally transparent. Anyone can see it.
It's like this immutable ledger, right? Like
Mm,
carving each vote in digital stone. It gets right at those anxieties people have, those vulnerabilities in our current systems, the potential for fraud, the inefficiencies, all of it. It erodes trust, and we need to address that.
totally. And the Department of Technology report, they really hit that nail on the head. Remember that election? Thousands of absentee ballots thrown out because of signature mismatches. Think of the uproar if blockchain could definitively prove whether those signatures were actually off or not.
Exactly. It exposes how fragile things are right now and why we need something to restore public confidence. And that's where this blockchain voting concept comes in.
So the DOT, they highlighted these benefits: more security, more transparency, greater efficiency. But the big one, trust. But how would this actually work, in the real world?
Well, think about a phased approach. It's not like we flip a switch and suddenly the entire country is on blockchain voting. They're suggesting we start small, maybe local elections, city council races, school boards, that kind of thing.
Okay, so kind of like a pilot program, work out the kinks before going big time.
Exactly. Controlled tests, make adjustments, especially because the stakes are lower in those smaller elections. In fact, there was this one local election, they implemented a blockchain system, and voter turnout way up. Especially younger voters, they loved the idea of voting on their phones and knowing it was secure.
Interesting. But do you think that increase can be entirely attributed to blockchain, or were there other factors at play there?
That's always the question, isn't it?
Mm,
While the DOT pointed to blockchain, it's hard to say for sure other factors weren't involved. It's rarely just one thing.
makes sense. So let's say those initial phases go well. Then we're talking about scaling up maybe to county-level elections, a much larger, more spread-out group of voters. How would that work?
That's where the strength of blockchain becomes clear. The DOT used the example of a county supervisor election. Each vote, every precinct, all meticulously recorded on the blockchain.
No more questions about whether counts are accurate, right?
Mm.
Avoid those drawn-out recounts and disputes.
Exactly. From the second a vote is cast to the final tally, it's all documented, verifiable, an unbreakable chain of custody for each vote. People can trust the process.
Okay, so we've covered local, we've talked county, but what about statewide elections? Those are high stakes, way more complex.
Right, and the Department of Technology knows this is a massive undertaking going statewide. They used a gubernatorial election as an example, and they highlighted how blockchain could provide real-time, completely transparent vote counts accessible to anyone.
So no more waiting on those nail-biter races, huh?
Exactly. But more importantly, it creates this sense of confidence in the outcome. You see the tally updating, you know it's verifiable, anyone can check the data.
Okay, so we've got a good grasp on the what and the why of blockchain voting. But now let's talk about the who and the how. Who's actually going to make this happen, and what's their plan?
Well, the Department of Technology, they see themselves as kind of the leaders in this whole thing.
So they're not just talking about it. They're ready to roll up their sleeves and do it.
Yeah, they know it's a huge task, and they're saying this has to be collaborative.
What does that look like, collaboration? Who needs to be at the table to make this a reality?
Well, they're talking about bringing everyone to the table, election officials, definitely, but then also cybersecurity experts, got to make sure the whole system is locked down tight. Oh, and can't forget the blockchain developers, the ones actually building this whole thing.
And policymakers, right?
Yeah,
Got to have the laws and regulations to back this kind of change up.
absolutely. This isn't just about tech, it's about society changing how it does things. But anyway, back to the how. The Department of Technology, they've got this four-pronged approach. Starts with building the system, making sure it's solid from day one.
And then implementation, which, I mean, that's got to be a whole thing, right? Our election systems,
Yeah.
they're complicated.
Yeah, integration is key for sure. They're talking about weaving blockchain right into voter registration, make it smooth, easy for anyone to use, even if you're not a tech wizard.
So no, like, clunky websites or anything that would make people give up?
Right, exactly. The goal is a system that just works, secure, intuitive, something that makes people feel confident, not confused. And they really stressed ongoing support, too.
You mean like maintenance, updates, fixing things if they break?
All of that, yeah. And of course, the last piece, that gradual rollout, we talked about starting small and scaling up. That's so you can adjust as you go.
Kind of like you wouldn't just like launch a ship without making sure it could actually sail first, right?
Exactly. It's about being careful, looking at the data, making tweaks, ensuring everything goes smoothly.
Now, any new technology, especially something as important as elections, you got to ask,
Hmm,
what could go wrong? What did they say about the potential downsides? Or even stuff they might have missed?
that's the million-dollar question, right? And look, the DOT, they laid out a good plan, seems smart. But you'd be crazy to think there are no risks. One thing that pops into my head right away is the digital divide.
Not everyone's got good internet, right? Or even feels comfortable with computers. How do we make sure blockchain voting doesn't leave those people behind?
Yeah, that's huge. And the DOT knows it. They said we need alternative ways to vote for people without reliable internet, or who just like doing things the old-fashioned way.
Right, makes sense. It's about giving people more options, not taking them away.
Yeah.
But even if we solve that, there's still the cybersecurity question, right?
Oh, definitely. Blockchain itself, very secure. But no system is perfect. There's always a risk. Some hacker somewhere is going to try to find a weakness, especially where blockchain interacts with other systems.
So it's not just about the blockchain itself, it's the whole thing surrounding it.
Exactly. And then there's the bigger picture, more philosophical even. How much power do we want to give technology when it comes to voting?
Like, are we worried about algorithms being biased or that there might be mistakes in the code itself?
That's it. We want a more secure, more transparent system, but we also got to remember tech isn't perfect. There can be glitches, errors, even intentional manipulation.
So blockchain, it's got potential, but it's not like this magic solution that fixes everything about elections overnight.
Not at all. It's a tool. A powerful one, definitely, could really improve things. But it has to be implemented carefully, thoughtfully, and we can't forget about the potential downsides.
Which brings us to, I guess, a bigger question. If blockchain isn't perfect, what else should we be thinking about alongside this technology to make elections better?
And that's where the conversation needs to go deeper, beyond the technology itself. What are the root causes of distrust in elections?
You're talking about things like campaign finance reform, gerrymandering, maybe even better civic education.
Exactly. Technology can be a powerful tool, but it's not a substitute for tackling those fundamental problems that undermine our democracy.
So it's not an either, it's both hand, right? Pursue technological advances and push for those essential policy changes.
100%. And that's where you and I come in, right? An informed and engaged public.
Because at the end of the day, it's on us, the voters, to hold people accountable, demand those reforms, and make sure our elections represent what we want.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We can't just expect technology to fix democracy. We have to be active participants, committed to a free and fair system.
So true. And speaking of being informed, the DOT, they've actually been pretty open about this whole blockchain voting thing. They've got this flowchart, breaks down the whole process step by step.
Yeah, it's surprisingly easy to understand, even if you're not a techie.
Sounds like a good place for our listeners to start if they want to really dig into how it all works.
Definitely. Shows how committed the Department of Technology is to transparency, to educating people.
We'll put a link to that flowchart in our show notes for anyone who wants to learn more. But as we start to wrap up this deep dive, I want to emphasize this is all still in the works.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Technology keeps changing, and the DOT, they're constantly tweaking things based on new research, pilot programs, what the experts are saying.
So this isn't about presenting a done deal. It's about having a real conversation about the future of voting.
Exactly, and everyone needs to be part of that conversation. It's our elections, right? We all have a stake in making sure they're secure, they're transparent, and they actually reflect what people want.
Such a crucial point. So as we wrap up our look at blockchain voting today, there's a lot to think about, a lot to learn, and hopefully it makes everyone listening want to get a little more involved. You know, we've been talking about how blockchain could make voting more secure, more transparent, but there's another piece to this, right? What about misinformation? All that stuff that pops up around elections, especially online. Could blockchain help with that?
Oh, absolutely. Misinformation, it's a huge problem. People get confused, they lose trust in the process. Blockchain, with its transparency, could be a real weapon against that.
Right. Because if every vote is recorded, tamper-proof, viewable by anyone, it's pretty hard to spin a story that the election was rigged or the results were faked.
Exactly. When everyone can see the verified record, those spreading misinformation, they lose their cover. No more hiding behind secrecy or claiming a lack of transparency.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant, right?
Mm.
Blockchain brings everything out in the open. People can be more informed, make better decisions.
Totally. And that transparency, it also keeps those running the elections accountable. Every single step is recorded on the blockchain. Try manipulating that.
So it's not just protecting the votes, it's protecting the whole system.
Yeah. Exactly. And when people trust the system, they trust the outcome. And that's something we desperately need right now.
Couldn't agree more. So for our listeners who want to go deeper on this whole blockchain voting thing, where should they start?
Well, we mentioned the Department of Technology's website, right? They've got tons of info up there, including that flowchart we talked about.
Right, that's a great resource. But beyond just the technical stuff, I hope everyone listening will really think about what this technology could mean. What are the pros and cons, in your opinion?
Yes, talk about it with people, read different perspectives, see what others are saying. The more informed we all are, the better equipped we are to shape how our elections work in the future.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of blockchain voting. It's complicated, no easy answers, but something we all need to be paying attention to.
Absolutely. The future of our democracy could very well depend on it.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the future of voting. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those brains working.